Okay, so whenever someone says acoustic guitar with electric amp, I always cringe a little bit because it's not supposed to go together, right? But I've been experimenting with a setup that not only sounds great, but it actually solves a problem as well. So in this video, come and join me as we explore using an electric guitar amp with an acoustic guitar. For this experiment, I'm going to be using my Fender Frontman, which is a 100-watt solid-state amp with two 12-inch speakers. I mainly use this for my lap steel guitar. That's pretty much all the electric playing that I do is with my lap steel stuff. But this is what I've got, so this is what we're going to use today. So first things first, I'm going to mic up the amp. I'm going to use this ribbon microphone by Extinct Audio. This is the Bourbon. This is a really nice little small passive ribbon microphone that sounds really big. It's got a really nice, rich, warm tone. So I think that will really complement the electric amp. Okay, so everything's set up, it's mic'd up, it's ready to go. I just need to turn it on, fire it up, and see how it sounds. Now, if I go directly from my acoustic guitar, which has a passive acoustic pickup, and go directly in with no preamp, no pedals, just straight in, it's not gonna sound very good. It's not gonna sound very good at all. But just for the experimentation's sake and for this video's sake, we're going to try and see how that sounds, just as a starting base. That actually sounded a lot better than I thought it was going to sound. So that's interesting. All right, so now let's add, I'm going to put my pedal board first, and then we're going to go into the amp. So first off, we're going to go through the Radial PZ Deluxe preamp. This is a preamp specifically for acoustic pickups. Then we're going to go into an EQ pedal. This is a parametric EQ by Empress Effects. This is a really, really great EQ pedal. And lastly, we're going to go into the Strymon Blue Sky reverb pedal. So we're going to see how that sounds with the preamp, the EQ, and the reverb pedal. So I could just leave it at that. I'm quite happy with the way it sounds. I don't need a distorted sound necessarily. It's not about getting a distorted high gain sound, although I do like that sort of, that little bit of crunch sometimes. But it's more just experimenting with what an amp can do, an electric guitar amp can do. So I could just say, this is really good. I'll just add a mic to my acoustic guitar and blend the two, and we're good. But I want to add another dynamic element to this setup. And this is something that I've been doing in the past, and I've been exploring and experimenting with. So I want to show you what it is. It's basically using this thing here, which is a volume pedal. This specific pedal is a Lila Active Mono volume pedal. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another signal, which is exactly the same signal, which is gonna be my sort of dry signal. And then I'm gonna have a wet signal, which is kind of more effects, which is coming through the amp. So the volume pedal is going to be placed at the start of just the wet signal, not the dry. So the dry signal is like my acoustic sound, but for the pickup. It's like my constant just preamp, EQ, natural sounding reverb. That's it. That's my acoustic sound through the pickup I'm talking about. And then my wet sound is just coming from the same preamp, just another output. And then I go into maybe another EQ, some different effects, some delay, maybe even distortion, and the reverb that is the Strymon reverb, because it's a little bit more kind of atmospheric. If I want a little bit more of this sort of haunting, deep reverb, I can add that in with the volume pedal. I can add that all in. And this is something that I've been using for a little bit now, but I haven't really used it in combination with an electric guitar amp. So this will be interesting to see how it turns out. I'm definitely liking the sound a lot more, and especially the control that I have over the effects. Using that as a dynamic tool really, really helps. And that's something I really, really enjoy, because when I'm singing, when I'm doing certain things in certain moments, I don't want too much effects. Like I don't always want lots of ambient reverb coming in on the whole song. So doing things this way, having a wet and dry, especially with the wet connected to the volume pedal, it really allows me to bring in these things in certain moments. And then combining that with the electric amp, there's something about the effects coming through an amp and then being picked up by a microphone that is also really unique and nice, and I'd say it's natural, more natural sounding than just if I was to just go straight into the interface via a cable. So now I want to introduce a microphone to the mix. I'm going to start with the Neumann KM184 small diaphragm condenser. This sounds great on acoustic guitars. I've used this for years. I even use this live as well, because I sit down when I play live and I like to use an external mic. And small diaphragm condensers are really good on stage because they're really good at rejecting other noise around them. So I'm going to use this on the acoustic guitar. So I'm going to have 3 separate tracks. One is the wet signal from the pickup, one is the dry signal from the pickup, and the other is this microphone. This should make all the difference, because obviously this is picking up the air. It's a completely different sound to how a pickup sounds. So it should give me a way more natural sound than if I was just using the pickups. So I think this will just bring the whole thing together. So let's have a listen. So this might be a completely useless setup. I mean, why use an electric guitar amp, or any amp for that matter, when I can just go directly into my interface or any recording device straight from my pickup? There's two main things that I've learned by doing this. One, by using an amp, I can hear my effects through the amp and in the room without using headphones. And that may seem like something that is pointless. Why not just use headphones? And why do I need to hear those effects at all? Firstly, I don't like using headphones. If there's a possibility that I don't have to use headphones, then I will take that, because it's a more natural way of hearing my instrument and hearing me sing. I very rarely just always practice with headphones. I practice without headphones. So if I can perform that way, then it's going to make my performance a lot better, and it's going to make me feel a lot more confident. But the reason I have to use headphones sometimes is because I like to hear the effects, especially when I'm using this wet and dry setup with the volume pedal, and I need to know how much I'm bringing in or not bringing in terms of the effects. So in that case, I would really need to use the headphones so I can hear that. But with this setup, I don't need to use the headphones because I can hear it in the room with the amp. And that is something that is a huge benefit to me. And point number two is it's very different hearing something being recorded through a cable directly into a recording device, an interface or whatever, than something coming through a speaker and being recorded with a microphone. There's something magical about hearing the signal being processed through the amp, coming out of the speakers, that then moving the air and that being picked up by the microphone, that I just love. And this is something that I can then explore and change in many different ways. It gets me really excited to think about the possibilities then I could do, whether it's trying different amps, different microphones, different positions, different rooms. There's so many different possibilities that I could explore when doing this. And that gets me so much more excited than everything being processed through cables, pedals, and preamps. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you also tried an electric guitar amp with an acoustic guitar? Did it sound any good, or did it sound rubbish? I'd love to know. I really hope you got some value out of this video. If you want to keep hanging out, then click on this video here, and I'll see you over there. Bye.